Hey, what is up, YouTube? So everybody knows that LS swaps are known for being cheap, but on this video, we're going to go over the 5 parts that you do not want to cheap out on your LS swap. So let's get started. I've been doing LS swaps for a while, and when I first started doing my LS swaps, I did the same thing that every beginner does, and that's look for the part you need and look on Amazon and eBay and look for the cheapest part because you figured they're all the same quality, right? Well, that's wrong. But first, let's go over these two vehicles, which are mine, and they both have a different purpose build. Let's start off with the C10. So when it comes to LS swaps, a lot of times people's horsepower goal greatly exceeds their budget. People that would ask me for quotes for the LS swap, the first thing I ask them is what's their goal. So a lot of times people throw out numbers like 500, 600 horsepower, 800 horsepower, even 1,000 horsepower. So in order to be able to prove that I could do this, I decided to build my truck into 1,000 horsepower to the wheels, daily driver. That way I could show that I could build it and I can actually make it reliable. And even though I fell a little short, I still proved my point and I'm able to gauge how much money we're going to need to build a high horsepower engine. So now let's go over the purpose of the Chevelle. The main purpose of the Chevelle was to show that I could build a high-end build just like a lot of shops do, using some of the best parts out there and still show that my quality of work is just as good as other shops. This build was focused on getting some of the best parts that money can buy, including some massive Brembo brakes that you don't really find on most LS swap vehicles. All right, so now that I'm done tooting my own horn, let's go ahead and get started with this list. So we're going to start off this list with number 5, and to me, the number 5 most important part for your vehicle is going to be injectors. So just a heads up, guys, a lot of the parts I'm going to mention are going to be those buy once, cry once parts where you can find a lot cheaper parts available, but they're not as good and they're not going to last you a long time. For example, here's some fuel injectors that I found on eBay and some that I found on Amazon. Now, these fuel injectors are very, very cheap and very, very appealing, but when you put them in your engine and you start having random misfires and dripping injectors and it's hard to tune, that's going to be your issue. So a better option if you want to stick with quality and still save some money is to get the OEM injectors from Rock Auto and save a couple bucks. And if you're really cheap, you could always visit your local junkyard and try to snatch some LS injectors from a truck-based engine. I'd rather use those over eBay or Amazon injectors. Now let's move on to number 4, and that's going to be your ignition coils. So this will probably be the easiest place to save money if you got your engine from a junkyard. So even on my truck engine that's built to handle over 1,000 horsepower, I'm still running OEM GM quality ignition coils, and there is no need to upgrade. So when GM builds their engines, they have to make sure they meet emissions, which means these coils have to fire consistently for thousands of miles. These stock coils will easily last you 150, 200,000 miles without any issues. I've used quality coils from aftermarket companies, but even those I've had issues with. But what I really don't understand is why people throw away these OEM GM coils that are quality and built to last for like 200,000 miles for some stuff that they find on Amazon or eBay. So don't get me wrong, these things look cool and maybe you're impressed by dozens of stats that they give you, or maybe you think that the government will ban them once they find out how badass these things are because they're equipped with lethal voltage. But the reality is most of these are junk and they're going to lead you to a bunch of issues like random misfires or even conditions where the vehicle doesn't even start. So up next is a number 3 spot for the part you do not want to cheap out on or buy from Amazon or eBay for your LS swap, and that's the fuel pump. Now, a lot of times people already know this and they usually want to buy quality parts. They'll look for like a quality Walbro fuel pump that they know is going to last, but they end up looking for one on eBay and Amazon, and you're not going to find a Walbro fuel pump that's a real authentic Walbro fuel pump for 49 bucks. It's not going to fucking happen. And I know what you're saying, but Swamp, these say Walbro on the fuel pump itself. Yeah, no shit, Captain Obvious. They're called fakes. And if you don't know what a fake is, go ask your wife. She could reach in her closet and pull out like 5 fake Gucci bags. They all say Gucci on them, but they're still fake. The only difference is her handbag won't let you stranded on the side of the road. So up next is number 2. Now this next part, it probably won't leave you stranded, but it'll probably catch your car on fire. I'll probably get some hate from some of you cheap bastards out there, but number 2 is Chinese headers. So before you come at me defending Speed Engineering's honor over your long tube headers that you had to bang for half an hour just to make sure they clear the frame, or if you feel you have to defend your maximum flow Andre 3000 headers you got from eBay for 120 bucks, hear me out. So here we have your basic Chinese headers, and to the untrained eye, these headers look legit. They have nice bends, they have a nice flange, they have good welds around the flange, and for 95 bucks you can't beat them with a stick. Now over to the right, we see a similar set of headers made by Doug Thorley, a USA company that hand builds all their headers in the USA. So right off the bat, the main thing you will notice is a ceramic coating, which makes it look a lot nicer. But the main thing everybody else notices is the price difference. So let me show you some differences that matter when you go cheap versus high dollar. So right off the bat, you'll notice that the left side uses a cheaper, thinner metal that tends to rust, and the right side ceramic coated. Now let's look at the mating flange for the cheap Chinese header. And as you can tell, most of these Chinese companies, they do use thick flanges and they do bolt up correctly to the engine without any issues. But if you notice, all the primaries are welded on the outside and there's no welds on the inside of the flange. Now if we look at the Doug Thorleys also use a thick flange to mate to the head, but all the weld on the outside are just tack welds, and not just to hold them in place, and all the welding is done on the inside of the flange. So that's not a huge deal, but the next difference should be a big reason why you would choose a premium header over a Chinese header. So once I show you this issue, you're probably gonna notice it on every single Chinese header you look at. So if you look at the first bend on the primary, you see how close it is to the header flange. you're going to notice that there's not a lot of room there. Now, that's where your spark plug wire is going to go at. So if there's no room there, your spark plug wires are most likely going to touch the header. Now, if you look at the ductile leads, you can clearly see how much more space there is between the bend and the header flange, enough to clear a spark plug wire. Now, if you're a company that makes headers, there's no reason your headers should touch your spark plug wire. And the second main reason that Chinese headers piss me off is that when you advertise your header should fit an LS engine and should fit this chassis here, it should fucking fit without you having to use a hammer to clear the frame. There's no excuses for that. So let me be fair, because I don't want to seem like I'm only shitting on Speed Engineering, but it always seems like half of their stuff fits and half of their stuff doesn't. I always see posts on Facebook about people having issues with their headers fitting, and they're from Speed Engineering, and half the comments are like, just use a hammer for that. Well, you shouldn't have to use the hammer. They're new fucking headers. But to be fair, Speed Engineering is going to be a little bit better than any of the crap you find on eBay. And look, I know we all aren't rich, and we can't afford the nice stuff like Doug Thorley or Ultimate Headers, but do yourself a favor and skip your caramel latte, frappuccino, Frito, Rito, Alapito drink once a week from Starbucks and save up some money so you can buy a decent quality header from China, from Hedman or freaking Hooker or some other company that makes Chinese decent headers. Holy shit. What are we talking about? Oh yeah, back to the list. At number 1 for the cheapest part that you should never buy from Amazon or freaking eBay, and that's gonna be your engine harness. A decent harness from a reputable company is gonna cost you a minimum of $300. If you find anything cheaper than that, it's gonna be complete garbage. So if you start scrolling through Amazon and start looking at all these different options for engine harness, and you don't question why these harnesses are so cheap, I think you're the kind of person that just likes to have issues. And don't even look at eBay. Look, this is one of those things that you just buy once and cry once. Just get it over with. You're only gonna buy one harness for your swap, so make sure it's a good one. So if you're serious about your LS swap and you want to buy the best parts and still save some money, definitely subscribe to my Instagram, guys. So as a subscriber, you have access to all these how-to videos that's specifically for subscribers. And you can also join the LS Swap chat where I answer specific questions about your issues. So as we know, time is money, so this will save you some time and money. But if you're only worried about saving money as a subscriber, you'll get discounts on all these different stores. All right, guys, comment down below what part you went cheap on that you really regret.